And here we go.
Sports!
I listen to you guys all the time.
It's awesome.
I'm in the mood for one of your classic anecdotes.
Give yourselves a round of applause. All right, that's enough.
Hey guys, there is someone I want you to meet.
Dave Hooker Show with Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net.
We're all part of the same team here.
Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
It's kind of funny. The Friday before the orange and white game would normally be a time to prop up the event, to talk about key players that are going to be in the orange and white game, and we'll do some of that. But my goodness, pushing that to the inside, as they said, they used to say in newspaper days, will certainly be the Nico Iamaleava saga and how it continues to unfold. Does he want more money? Does Tennessee have a problem with him wanting more money? And that's why they're leaking information. A lot to get to on the program today as the show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Also, we broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. This day in Tennessee sports history, 4 Downs will showcase the orange and white game that is forthcoming. Also, Steve Spurrier has some comments on the NIL, stat of the day as well. And what coaches are you hot or cold on heading into this offseason? We'll talk Halsey, Pope, Ellerby, Inge, Martinez, and more. Be hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
Well, I'm certainly doing better than Tennessee's administration is today.
Yeah, wow. A lot going on with Nico, and I want to dive into that without any ado. But first, if you can, go ahead and set us up with the poll question that I know has something to do with Nico Iamaleava before we get to today's tough question, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Caleb?
Yeah, so the poll question is going to be this, guys. Assuming they are renegotiating NIL deals, and there's conflicting reports, we'll get to that at the top of the second hour. Should Tennessee renegotiate with Nico Iamaleava, or should they let him walk? That'll be the question.
All right, today's tough question will be this, a little different, but we can certainly play them off of each other. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Should Tennessee fans be upset that Nico Iamaleava is reportedly looking for more cash and renegotiating his contract? Caleb, should Tennessee fans be upset? And are you upset on the message board? Want to hear from you.
Guys, this is the same Tennessee fan base that supported the Tennessee administration and the state of Tennessee for declaring open war on the NCAA on behalf of Nico Iamaleava's ability to do this. Like,
true. It could come across as a little hypocritical as you're referring to the lawsuit in which the NCAA basically went belly up and said, you can pay players, you can do all you want to, we can't stop you. And the private flights that you gave Nico back and forth from Knoxville to LA is perfectly fine. There's some truth to that. But Caleb, I would offer this as well. Even though there might not be a binding contract, shouldn't there be some of the notion that, hey, we're all on the same page here? It's the orange and white game. I mean, there could be situations in which your employer benefits greatly financially by what you're doing. There are times, though, to ask for more money. And obviously, the Iamaleava's family, if this is actually the case, which we've heard conflicting reports, if they're going after more money, this would be their time because the spring portal opens April the 16th. Caleb, I think it's a little bit hollow, to be honest with you. I think that if Nico's asking for more money, he's done it before the orange and white game because football is at the top of everybody's mind. And then he's done it before the spring portal. But I tell you what, I'm calling bluffs if he's legitimately talking about going in the spring portal, because I don't know of a single player that's gone in the spring portal to another school that's had success. It's just too short of a turnaround.
No, yeah, I think, look, I absolutely think this is bluffing on Nico Iamaleava's part just to see if he can get more. but so what? He's allowed to do that. And this is part, like, if you want NIL negotiations, this is what comes with it, honestly. So yeah, part of NIL negotiations is bluffing. I mean, that's how negotiating works. I mean, Dave, how many times have coaches bluffed in their life? I mean, how often, you know this, how many times did Nick Saban leak that I might be looking at this job? I might be looking at Texas. He was never going to Texas, was he? Ever.
Well, I'll play one closer to home that I know better. Philip Fulmer used to always leak, or his agent leaked. I don't want to put it on Philip, but his agent, Jimmy Sexton, would leak that he had interest from the NFL and being an offensive line coach. That was when he was a coordinator at Tennessee and then a head coach, where some wondered, would he take a head coaching job in the NFL? No, Philip Fulmer was never going to do that, but it was leaked out there for leverage.
Yeah, I actually remember that. I think it was the Panthers specifically. They leaked a report about the Panthers being interested in Philip Fulmer as a head coach one year. And look, honestly, that's what they do. They bluff all the time. Guys, this is what people fought for. Now, I'm just going to say this, Dave. Two things could be true. I'm not going to call Tennessee fans hypocritical on this, because you could be for Nico's right to do this, but then you could say, but he hasn't earned the right to do this because he hasn't performed well enough. But so maybe
let me address that for a second, because Dylan nice enough to give us some numbers. Nico makes $2 million a year, Lagway 3.8, Lenore Sellers 3.7, Garrett Nussmeyer 3.6. He's every bit as good as those cats, is he not?
Lenore Sellers was better than him last year. Lenore Sellers almost single-handedly got South Carolina into the college football playoff. I don't know if that's going to last this year, but Lenore Sellers was almost Johnny Manziel late bloomer. I think we underrated how well he played last year down the stretch. John Adams won at South Carolina in the college football playoff just because of how well he was playing.
I still believe, though, there's a lot of unknown with all the quarterbacks we mentioned, Lagway, Sellers, and Nico.
Oh, there is. There's a ton, and there's development required and things like that. Let's get to Timothy's super chat real quick. Let's pull that up, because he says no such thing as college football anymore. This is semi-pro and it's pay to play. Since they have contracts, there's to be parameters saying if you don't meet these, you don't get paid.
Here's the problem. They don't have contracts. They don't have binding contracts.
These are endorsements. Yeah, these are just straight up endorsements. They don't have binding contracts at all. And you can't put that on the player. You can't even put it on the school. You put it on the businesses that are willing to open a check. And Dave, here's what's happening. Let's call it what it is. The market is determining this. The market is basically saying if these businesses don't write them a check without any demands, another business for another school will.
Okay.
So that's the problem.
Smoky Mountain Red has this to say: with the changes coming to the NCAA, with money kids are getting while they can, I would tell my son to do the same thing. So let's go to today's tough question.
One more super chat real quick. Bye.
Okay, we're going to do today's tough question, brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Okay, who do you believe in this thing? Today's tough question. Do you believe Nikos, who reported that Nico is in contract negotiations, or do you believe Nico's father, who said that is not the case, it's not coming from our camp? Or do you believe both? And I think this is the most troubling one, that Tennessee's coaches may have leaked this to Pete Nikos. And that, to me, would illustrate concern over Nico. If you're asking for me, it's 25 years in the journalism business, I don't think Nikos would throw something out there like that, which cost him his reputation. I don't necessarily think it was Josh Heupel who leaked it, but I think it could be an assistant coach or maybe even an analyst, and you run with this story because it's believable. So I think it's somewhere in between. I think there's frustration on Tennessee's behalf that they're having so many guys renegotiate by threatening to the transfer pool. I do believe there's sincere frustration in that. So if you're asking me, the most plausible answer that somebody on Tennessee's staff heard somebody griping about Nico and they passed that along to Pete Nikos.
Okay, so there is a lot to unpack here. I think On Three reports in depth on a lot of negotiations and things that are happening, but I think you can miss. There have been accusations in the past that Pete Nakos has lied. I'm not saying he has. I'm not saying he hasn't. I have seen no evidence that he has ever lied about anything, but there have been reports and accusations of leaks that turned out to not be true.
Okay, we need some examples though. What do we got? And by the way, Timothy with a super chat that we're going to pull up. No, NIL is okay. This is what I don't know what that means. Bull scat? What?
I think
exactly sure what he means by that. But no, NIL is not going away. So, what are some instances in which he has perhaps misreported something?
There is an argument about that he misreported on, and this is, guys, this is just coming from Twitter. Okay, I just want to point this out. But there's an argument that he misreported how Demonic Williams was the Oklahoma defensive lineman was going about his transfer portal process back in the day and what he was looking for. That's the primary one, but there were that's the main example. But On Three has been accused to a certain degree of being, shall we say, someone pointed it out earlier, the TMZ of things, which is they are very, very much into trying to break something more than anything else. And look, when you're TMZ, you break the story that Michael Jackson died. But then how many things have they broken that turned out to like they missed on because they want to get it first more than get it right sometimes.
Well, I'll take it a step further, and I'm not throwing On Three under the bus, and I'm not trying to cast aspersions on anyone, but you suddenly have agents involved, and you have a group of media members that are not used to dealing with agents, and there are some things that agents could tell you that don't necessarily need to be reported. Like, is Nico renegotiating? I would say he's always renegotiating. You know, if he throws for 500 yards against Florida, he probably comes in Monday and renegotiates. So I think that agents can float stuff out there. I've wondered aloud a couple of times on this show when agents have a more prevalent role. I think that's the situation. So I believe that Nico's father, when he says we haven't asked for more money or aren't renegotiating, I believe that's true. I believe, though, that the agent is always renegotiating. And
always, that's their job.
Yeah, I believe that's probably where this is coming from.
I think you're right. You know what it reminds me of is like, remember when Kevin Garnett got that giant record contract with Minnesota in '97 and we found out he wasn't even involved in the negotiations. The agent did the whole thing, but he got the record contract and then that it led to the NBA lockout. Like, I think people don't realize that happens a lot. Athletes don't like to deal with negotiations a lot of times. They want to focus on playing their sport and they just say to their agent, get a deal done. And then the agent goes and gets the deal done. They don't want to work on that type of stuff. So, yeah, I think that's very possible with Nico Iamaleava on that front. And I mean, that's why, what if this isn't coming? You're right. What if this is something where it's coming from Iamaleava's camp, but it's not coming from his family. It's coming from his agent, and the agent didn't even talk to Iamaleava's family. That's highly possible, by the way, that happened.
It's very highly possible. As a matter of fact, out of all that we've hashed out, I would say it's the most likely. Elias says, now I'm guessing this is Nakos, clear us up here, Elias, says he feel like a source he trusts with his life has to be a long tenured support staff member. Or, unless Chris Lowe happened to have gone to college with Jimmy Sexton. I'm sure that Chris Lowe trusts Jimmy Sexton with his life. So, you know, you can have a history there. I don't think that's a natural jump to go from, hey, this has to be a high level member. In other words, I don't think this is necessarily as high as Josh Heupel, Joey Halsley. I think it could be somebody just in the recruiting office for that matter.
Oh, I totally agree with you on that. I mean, it could easily be somebody in just the recruiting office. And it's kind of, I mean, but what could have happened is the agent went to renegotiate with the coaching staff or somebody in the office, and then somebody in the office leaked that to Pete Nakos, and this is where this is all coming from.
Yes,
and
I think this needs to be. I don't think the coaches need to be aware of any dollar figures. I just don't think that needs to be the case anymore. I just because there are too many moving parts. There needs to be a GM. But in the end, what did we decide on today's tough question? Because we threw about 1 million out there.
Well, the first one is, should Tennessee let Nico walk or not? And then the other one is, do you believe Nico?
Okay, well, let's go. Do you walk?
Nico's.
Brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. You just let him walk. Bye, Nico.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones.
All right, so let me ask you this. We'll make today's tough question the poll question, and that is, Nico, would you pay him or let him walk? Right now, 55% say no, let him walk. 48% say yes, that he should get paid. Your thoughts, Caleb? You have a son now. It makes things a little bit different when you start to put him in this position.
I think you have to pay him. I think the thing that's making it hard for Tennessee fans right now, and I get it, is you got a quarterback that they really believe in, and George McIntyre waiting in the wings, who is willing to play for less than his market value because he loves Tennessee. Guys, that is a what is it they call it, a canary in the coal mine? That's not going to be the way things are.
What's a canary in the coal mine? I've never heard that before.
I think that's just a phrase for something that's very rare, an anomaly.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's maybe I used that wrong, actually. So throw that out. I think that actually just means potential danger. So throw that out. Totally different. I used the wrong analogy. I apologize. But yeah, just something that really stands out. George McIntyre is an anomaly. That's not going to be par for the course for Tennessee going forward with quarterbacks. You're just going to have to get used to the fact that you're going to have to pay market value to quarterbacks to a certain degree. And you let Nico walk. How do you recruit another quarterback after that? I mean, what Tennessee initially paid Nico up front was a splash to get him. But all of a sudden now, Dave, quarterbacks are making more than that. And so I just think you have to pay him and you have to renegotiate. And just, this is the age of NIL until there's guardrails. You're going to have to renegotiate all the time.
Those guardrails are supposed to come pretty much any time. I'm hearing by August. I'll remind you, we broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. TedRussellFord.net, TedRussellLincoln.net, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. You will find the vehicle you absolutely need, whether it's used or new, at Ted Russell Ford or Ted Russell Lincoln on Parkside Drive and Kingston Pike. TedRussellFord.net, TedRussellLincoln.net. The buying process is unbelievable. You'll absolutely love it. More Nico and spring game. As we remind you, we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American made. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Save up to $4,350 on a new Ford F-150 XLT, or get into a new Ford Ranger XLT with no payments for 90 days. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location.
Ginger Power, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Will West will join us from the Sports Animal a little bit later. He's got some insight into the Nico thing. Pretty much sits with this, and that is he has all the leverage. Does he not? I Bleed Orange says, let Nico walk. At some point, somebody's going to have to take a stand against an NIL demand. I don't know if that's Tennessee's place to do that. You mentioned McIntyre. I think Jake Merklinger would be the guy who would immediately step up. Now, long term, you may be right, but are they really willing to make that move with a very important season coming up? I don't think so.
I mean, I don't think they can make that move. You can't do that with George McIntyre this year. He's not going to be ready. I mean, the only reason they might make the move is that buys Josh Heupel a little more goodwill for a couple of years, because no one's going to be upset if he doesn't go make the playoff this year with a true freshman quarterback.
Couple of notes from our message board. Steve says, are we seriously going to let a 5-star quarterback walk because of money? I don't think so. Dylan says, we are a playoff team, for God's sake. I guess at some point you have to ask yourself, is Nico all ball? And I don't say that. I always thought it was funny, like when, let's say the Berries, for instance, the Berries came to Tennessee, and because their dad played, they got a discount, all this stuff. So people would say, why don't you just pay for your own scholarship? Well, no, because that's silly. So I don't think that Nico should bend over backwards just because he loves Tennessee. He still deserves to get paid. This is still a business. But does this latest development make you question his loyalty to the university, Caleb?
I mean, maybe, but the thing that no, it doesn't make me question whether or not his loyalty is where it needs to be. Guess what, guys? People negotiate contracts. That doesn't mean they're not loyal. Okay, they're loyal. They may be loyal after they get paid. But the underrated part of that Pete Nico's report is that Nico's very happy at Tennessee.
Okay, my question is: he loyal enough? Is it incumbent upon Nico? Let's say this has been released or leaked by an agent. Do you call that agent and say, whoa, cool your jets, you've got me in a bad situation here? Or do you have your dad do it?
I mean, I think you is Nico loyal enough? Do you call your agent? I mean, maybe you would probably have your dad do it. His dad's willing to say whatever he wants to say on this. So, I mean, maybe you have your dad do it, but yeah, I think Nico. Let me put this out here, guys. And Dave, you told me this yesterday, or maybe not yesterday, like last week. You said 50% of the guys playing college football are playing it as a means to an end, right?
Probably, yes.
Okay, that doesn't mean they're not loyal to the team they're playing for, and they're not going to play hard when they're on the field. So, I mean, where are we with this loyalty thing is what I'm asking. I mean, let's just be honest. Everybody loves Peyton Manning. You and I both know Peyton Manning chose Tennessee as a means to an end. He was thinking about the NFL the whole time.
Yeah, but he ended up falling in love with the university. I don't think there's any question about that.
That's what happens in the process. But Fred White told us a story where Peyton Manning worked on a play in practice every day that he never actually threw in a game, and it turned out he was working on that play so he'd be ready for it in the NFL.
Yeah, but I don't think there's any question that he fell in love with the university. With Nico going back to California, taking Mike Matthews, I mean, it crept in my mind, is he taking him back there to take a look at Southern California? I mean, I don't know. And it makes me wonder that he's not a bigger part of Tennessee's on-campus off-season workouts, because they were supposed to be working out with their teammates during that time. And he's back in Cali. Again, players get time off, and I've got no problem with that. But you also have to be cognizant of how those things are perceived. And they're perceived, whether it's true or not, and I don't think it's true, that he's a bit of a diva. And that ultimately he's not loyal to anybody but a paycheck. That's the way this is being perceived, fair or not. By the way, Timothy with the super chat says, players have contracts, then you should have parameters. See, that's part of the problem, Caleb, is there are no parameters right now.
No, there aren't. I mean, that's exact. Guys, that's the issue, but this is what we said was good. You know who fought for no parameters? Tennessee. Tennessee openly fought for there to be no parameters. So,
well, and remember this too. You can say, oh, it should all be in the contract. But if somebody comes to my son right now and says, here's the contract, you're only going to get paid $2 million, and that's a hard cap, I'm going to say stick it, because I think that things could change in the coming years. You've got DJ Lagway making $2.5 million, and he hasn't done anything at Florida.
Right. We've almost reached the Deshaun Watson record contract moment of the NFL, haven't we, for college football? I mean,
I don't know who's going to do that, but clearly it wasn't Nico who got $2 million a year. We were all astonished that he got $2 million a year. Everybody's flown right by that number. What is the ultimate price right now for a starting quarterback that's playoff caliber in the SEC? It's pushing $4 million.
Yeah. The question becomes then, this is where you get to X's and O's, because we know receivers are actually valuable in a high-field system. What's the system, Dave, that is the most quarterback dependent? And what I mean by that is you can just put guys everywhere else if you have the right quarterback and you don't need anything else. Is there a coach, do you think Lane Kiffin's system could do that?
Well, the only one I can think of would be Steve Spurrier's system. And it's not to downgrade his talent that he had at the skill position. He had skill position players, but I do think a bunch of dudes could run around there and have success.
Yeah, but he had a bunch of dudes at quarterback too. So it's
right, but I don't think that Danny Werfel steps into most quarterback situations and is a star. Do you?
No, I'm not talking about. No, I'm saying the reverse. I'm saying what system is dependent on if the quarterback is elite, you can just have a bunch of average dudes at skill positions everywhere else as long as the quarterback is the right guy.
Oh, so you're kind of going the opposite direction.
Yeah, in college. There's a few of those in the NFL, but
I mean, to me, those are pretty extraordinary. Like the Mike Vicks of the world, the Johnny Manziels of the world, like the Cam Newtons of the world. I don't think there's a lot of
Gus Malzahn. That's the perfect guy. If Gus Malzahn's system, though, if you have the right quarterback, you don't really need anybody else, do you?
Yeah, I could see that. I also wonder this too, because what happens when the NFL plays in Indianapolis? They always refer to Lucas Oil Field as the stadium that Peyton built, right?
Yes.
Because of the success he had. Did Tennessee get above their skis a little bit when they're talking about this Neyland Entertainment Complex? Did they then just give more fuel to the fire of Nico that says, I want more money, I want more money? You talk about how great things are going, and they are going well, but there's no banner being hung yet. There's no rings being divvied out. So they haven't gone exquisite to this point. But I just think that Tennessee got a little ahead of itself. They have an AD who likes to market his product, and I wonder if they're a little too overexposed, and that's led to some players like oh my gosh, who's the defensive back after McCoy got hurt?
Ricky Gibson.
Yeah, Ricky Gibson, Mike Matthews, Nico. I mean, I don't think that everybody's.
So what you're saying is, let's just put it out there. It's kind of almost like the way unions negotiate in professional sports. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember when the NBA had their contract in 2011, they re-upped it. Then they signed, what was it, a $2 billion deal with ESPN, Dave? They bragged about that. They were like, look at this deal we got with ESPN. We're going to be making a lot of money. And here comes the union saying, well, if you sign that deal with ESPN, you better pay us next round of negotiations. We're going to demand a lot more money in this. So it's kind of one of those, it's chicken or the egg. I mean, this is how basically, if you want to think about it, in the private sector, publicly traded companies work. They want to brag about their revenue, right? Because that's what that helps them in the stock market with shareholders. But the minute they do that, if they got a unionized workforce, man, that workforce is going to come and say, oh, you're bragging about this amount of money you're making, so we are going to renegotiate here.
Yeah, I think that's part of what's going on, and I don't know that you're not supposed to do it, but I don't know that the Neyland Entertainment Complex helps you when you're negotiating with players. As a matter of fact, I think it hurts you.
I just think it craps all over a very beautiful site. I think there is
We know you think that, but I mean, as it pertains to the players, you don't think that in some sense you're rubbing their nose in it, that, hey, we're building this huge complex that you're not going to get any money off of, but your success led to it.
Oh, I'm sure they feel that. I'm sure they absolutely feel that way. No doubt about it that they feel that way. So,
stat of the day is now. It's brought to you by Double D Piping, fire protection contractors providing around the clock service, protecting their customers' lives and properties at all times.
Stat of the day. They never lie. Or do they? Stat of the day. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun.
All right, Caleb, what do you got? Our stat of the day.
all right. So our stat of the day is an interesting, fun one. Tennessee is tied for second in the nation for most consecutive top 4 seeds in the NCAA tournament in men's basketball. They're tied with Arizona. Number 1 is Purdue. Purdue has had a top 4 seed 8 consecutive years, obviously not counting 2020 because of COVID. Arizona and Tennessee have had top 4 seeds 4 consecutive years each. Interestingly enough. Again, they're a basketball blue blood without a Final Four. I don't know how that's the case, but they are.
Yeah. A couple of comments from the message board. I'm not going to share it because it's got a bad word in it. Chris says that Danny White likes to smell his own stuff. He's too smug to realize he is sniffing stuff. And that's all I'm going to say is stuff. And Derek says, Dave and Caleb sub out the show to India for cheaper labor. Who's sticking around? But the question is, who would answer my customer service phone calls? I mean, what would happen with that? Again, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Stat of the day brought to you by Double D Piping.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beat. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Welcome back. Here's the other thing. Do we really know how good Nico is, given the problems on the offensive line, that Brew McCoy was an explosive wide receiver? Do we really even have an idea of how good he is or not? Caleb?
No, I think I know how talented he is. I saw that arm.
Right.
But I do think he's still very, very good. I think he had issues at receiver last year, had issues at tackle as he was developing, and he showed a lot of, again, I go back to that Ohio State game. He showed a lot of moxie at the Ohio State game, honestly.
Agree with that. Let's go to Tennessee's defense for a moment. Bank on it. Tennessee's defense is going to have a fall off this season. Member FDIC, Life Made Better, Commercial Bank, CBTN.com. Here's why I think so. Caleb, you've got an incredible loss at Tennessee's front four, and you have Jermon McCoy, who is supposed to be back for the beginning of the year with the ACL injury, but I'll believe that when I see it. Tennessee's defense, bank on it. Do you agree will have a fall off this year from last season?
No, believe it or not. This is a debate, and I'll tell you why. I think he may have one early with Jermon McCoy being hurt, but I think Ricky Gibson third is really good. And I think Jermon McCoy, the gap between McCoy and Gibson's a little bit overrated, if I'm being honest with you, because I saw what happened to Jermon McCoy when he was covering good receivers. Jeremiah Smith cooked Jermon McCoy that whole game in the college football playoff matchup. The other point I want to make is while Tennessee is going to have a bit of a drop off on the interior of the defensive line, I think the edge rushers will be fine. Jordan Ross, Joshua Joseph. I don't think they're going to have much of a drop off even with James Pierce gone. And here's the most important thing, Dave. I think they're going to improve dramatically at linebacker. I think a year of experience has done wonders for Arian Carter, who I think could be an All-American caliber linebacker. And I think Jeremiah Thielander is much, much, much better now. So with that, and I think that while there will be a slight drop off in the secondary and the defensive line, I think there's going to be a gigantic improvement at linebacker. So much so it outweighs the other two.
Okay, to your point, I think Thielander can be really good, and I think they're benefited by the fact that they didn't get one guy ready to play first string in Keenan Pili, and then he wasn't ready. There is going to be a ton of pressure on this defense. Again, to your point, I think the second level of pass protection, which is most oftentimes the linebackers, has been sketchy at best. And that's because they've had injuries with Keenan Pili at the situation, at the position. Here's where I can't go with you. They've lost just too much on the defensive line. The secondary, I think, was propped up to a large extent by the defensive line. So I guess I'm saying that you're pulling out of a three-legged stool, you're pulling one leg away. So it's not that the other legs aren't that good. It's just they can't function without a good bit of pass protection. So I get your retort on that. Bank on it. Tennessee's defense will take a step back this year. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC, Life Made Better.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank.
All right, Caleb, continue, if you will. You think that Tennessee's defense will be every bit as good. By the way, I'm just going to point out, second in the SEC in yards allowed, third in points allowed.
Very, very good. Yes. Look,
I think I'm going to throw you that question and then jab you in the gut when I do it.
I still can handle this. Don't worry. I think Tennessee's defense, look, let's just put it out there. I think you brought up a three-legged stool. What if two legs are semi-strong and then one leg is pretty weak? The
two legs you have remaining, then you're on your butt in the floor.
I'm saying one leg is pretty weak. The other two legs are semi-strong. That was last year. I think the linebackers were actually kind of weak last year.
Okay.
This year, that one leg that was weak gets extremely strong, and the two legs that were semi-strong just get a little bit less strong, but are still in that same tier. That's what I'm saying. So the second stool sturdier. Sorry. And so I got to be honest. I am very much like, I get your point, but I don't think the defensive backs nor the defensive line are going to have a regression to the point where they can't be effective. They're still going to be good, solid units, and maybe even above average, and maybe actually a couple could be great. I mean, we don't even know. But I think the linebackers, Dave, I think This is my hot take. I think T-Lander and Arian Carter could be the best linebacker duo in the SEC this year. Honestly.
Strong.
I mean,
okay, that's pretty strong. Pretty strong. I think Carter's really good. I still need to see more out of T-Lander, who I think will be good. Portions of the program brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com. RickTerryJewelry.com. Now, do you think Tennessee's defense, both from a schematic and personnel standpoint, is to the point where they're just like Georgia? Georgia is very good, and Alabama back in the day under Nick Saban. They were at least very good on defense, right? Sometimes they were lights out, but they were at least very good. So with all they've lost, do you think Tennessee's close to that point?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't think they've lost as much as we think they've lost. Look, I still believe I'm going down with the ship on this. I think Jordan Ross is going to surpass James Pierce as a player. And I still firmly believe that. I think Joshua Joseph showed a lot of promise last year. By the way, what if this is true? And we know this about edge rushers, Dave. Because edge rushers dictate so much of how teams scheme offensively, if you got a really good edge rusher, don't you kind of want to keep him under wraps if he hasn't been noticed yet?
I don't know that you can keep him under wraps. It doesn't mean that he's going to play in the orange and white game. Is that what you're asking?
I'm saying I think that Coach Chop and the staff were lying about how good Jordan Ross was this offseason. They were staying quiet on him because they don't want teams to prepare for him and once the season starts.
You were sold on the Jordan Ross train.
I am sold.
You got your ticket punched.
I am thoroughly sold on this Jordan Ross train. Yes. Even though he cost Tennessee a game last year with his roughing the punter penalty, I am 1,000% sold on Jordan Ross.
Yes. Daniel says Pierce was overrated. Caleb Ross will be a beast.
I don't think Pierce was overrated. I just think Jordan Ross is a more.
But did you see what he did with Caleb Ross? Like you're related to him? I thought that's what he was.
Are you saying I'm married to him? Like I love him?
Maybe.
Okay. I am thoroughly sold on Jordan Ross. Insanely so. And honestly, I think he's going to be they talked about James Pierce as a smaller Leonard Little. What if Jordan Ross is just a Leonard Little?
Okay, so your main arguments that Tennessee's defense won't be down is they'll get better linebacker play and they'll get an edge rusher that is better than James Pierce.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, the linebacker play is going to be significantly better because, Dave, let's talk about it for a minute. Arian Carter was raw last year. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Jeremiah Thielander wasn't ready to start last year. Also fair to say?
Yes. And I'm going to only go with you halfway on Carter. I mean, he played extensively as a freshman. Go ahead.
He did. But, Arian Carter's going to be, his game is fine-tuned now. So, I mean, I see all-American potential with Arian Carter. I see all-SEC potential with Jeremiah Thielander. It's a big disappointment that the linebackers aren't incredibly elite this year. I think that Tennessee's
not a question, though, with the way they play Carter so much on the strong side of the ball. There's an extra blocker there. I've never understood that. He, to me, seems like a guy in the backfield. Sorry.
They do send him in the backfield a lot, though, to be fair. And maybe that's, on the edge. So, look, I think you have a little bit less depth on the interior of the defensive line. Concern. Fair enough. And you're without Jamon McCoy. Concern. I don't think those two things outweigh the slight improvement I think you're going to get at edge rusher and the dramatic improvement you're going to get at linebacker. I think the combination is going to make Tennessee's defense better.
Sure. All right. So what about Jermod McCoy? If he's out an extended period of time, we've been told he'll be back by preseason camp, but your thoughts if he's not back soon?
I think if he's not back soon, if Jermod McCoy's not 100% by October, then this goes out the window a little bit. But I think if he's 100% by October, things will be fine. They can survive without him in September. They'll just lose to Georgia like they always do and still be in the playoff running. But I think if he's back by October at 100%, they're good.
All right, go ahead and get on board. Now let's make it a poll question if we can. Do you expect Tennessee's defense to be as good as last year? Let's go with yes, they're established. No, that was a fluky year. it was a year in which Tennessee, if I would have told you Jermod McCoy would become a standout last season, you would have probably said, no, I don't think that's the case. But if I would have told you that Omar Norman Lott is going to be a standout, you wouldn't have thought that was the case. So other than T-Lander, Carter, and Ross, who you mentioned, are there any other players that stand out that could escalate their play and help Tennessee be one of the better defenses in the SEC? Because I'll be honest with you, I think that's a little bit of a reach.
Well, Edwin Spillman could spell some injuries at linebacker. He's apparently taken a step forward. He's pretty versatile. I think Joshua Josephs can end up being better. Again, Tyree West is a force on the line. And, we're still not like I still think we're underrating how I think we're underrating what Ricky Gibson can do at cornerback. Honestly, is the number one cornerback. I also think that more experience for Andre Turrentine. Jordan Thomas being healthy again, by the way, is a huge boost. There's a reason that Christian Harrison entered the transfer portal. Jalen McMurray's back. Jacoby Thomas, a lot of experience in the secondary, if we're being honest. So
here's the player that we're not mentioning enough that I think could make a major step and help Tennessee's defense, and that's Jackson Moy. I would watch him now that he's had some time in the system. I think that's a guy who can be a real standout player. You mentioned Josephs. Dominic Bailey has to take another step as well. Tyree West. You also wonder where David Hobbs is. I mean, suddenly he's quietly a junior, and he was a 4-star guy. Where is he? Does he take that step? But I don't see as many options this year as I did this time last year.
No, I agree. But I still that's why I said there will be less depth on the interior of the defensive line. But I think there will be so much talent and improvement elsewhere. And so that's where I'm landing on this. I think Tennessee is going to be one. I'll just say it. I think they'll actually be. I'm talking myself into them maybe being even better on defense in the secondary because of Jordan Thomas being back. Okay. Remember, Jordan Thomas, they were really high on him last year before season-ending injury at safety. So let's not underrate that.
Okay, so wait a second. You think they could be better defensively than they were last year?
Yes, I do.
I just don't see that happening. I don't see that unless the overall talent level of the entire program has gone up. I don't see that being a situation in which they could pull that off. Now, if we're talking about guys plugging in, if we're talking about Moyes plugging in for Norman Lotts, if we're talking about that, Tennessee had that going in the late 90s and early 2000s. But right now, I don't know that do you believe their talent level is of the ilk of, let's say, Georgia, anybody else, or lower level Vanderbilt? It's anybody else, right?
Georgia, anybody else, or lower level Vanderbilt?
You don't think it's at Georgia's level because that's restocked.
It's closer to Georgia than anybody else. I got to be honest.
All right. Dylan says, I'm agreeing with Caleb for once. Banks' defense has steadily trended upwards. That's the other factor. Trends are important. And the fact that these coaches were able to speak to these players and get them to play hard and play efficiently last year shouldn't be overlooked because they could have lost this team because of how poorly the defense had played previously.
Yeah, they could have. I totally agree. But I think that, look, given Tim Banks' coaching and given the guys that they have on the roster, I think they'll be. I think the weapons, again, I'm talking myself into the secondary, still actually matching last year, and the linebackers being significantly better. So there's a reason they're going to be better.
Okay, so we're going to now 4 downs brought to you by. Actually, are we doing 4 downs here?
Yeah.
Okay. 4 downs is now. We're going to talk some spring game as it does matter. Believe it or not, it does matter. 4 downs is right now, and it's brought to you by our fantastic friends at the UPS store, Hardin Valley. Let's dive in. Where would you rank the spring game in terms of mattering, Caleb?
Rank it versus what?
I guess they used to have open scrimmages and stuff. Let me ask you this. Do you see more out of the orange and white game than you do, let's say, a matchup against Kent State?
Oh, well, yes, because Kent State is purposely throwing games. So, I mean,
Chattanooga.
I still say yes. I see more out of the orange and white game than I do out of Chattanooga. Because guess what? They're facing tougher competition on the other side than they are when they face Chattanooga.
Yeah, there's some truth to that. Okay, so Tennessee, let's 4 downs it now as our good friend, the one, the only Cooper Mace will get us from point to point. 4 downs. Cooper, what should people do?
Cooper Mace here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right. Thank you, Coop. And which down?
Coop here. First down.
Okay. Tell me if this matters. It shows the players what they can do with a crowd in front of them, air quotes, under the lights, so to speak. There's some truth to this. A player could wilt. However, I don't think there's much truth to it. I think at the end of the day, you're not going to wilt in front of 40,000 fans. A lot of these guys have played in front of 6, 7, 8,000 in high school. I don't think there's a major jump, and I don't think you're going to see players wilt and then subsequently wilt this fall with 100,000 seats.
I think you kind of can sometimes, because there's a couple of things that's underrated about the jump from high school to college, Dave. And it's kind of like in college basketball where they play in like a football stadium for the Final Four. It's not just the fans; it's the depth perception of the stadium you're playing in to a certain degree.
Yeah,
I think that throws you off some.
Well, they've held some practice there. All right, second down.
Coop here. First down.
That's first
Cooper
down.
Mays here. Second down.
It's another practice at the end of the day. Here's the problem why I don't adhere to this is that your program is afraid to show anything at the orange and white games. I don't even know how much this is a practice. I mean, how long is Nico going to go, assuming he gets his contract wrapped up? What, 15 plays, maybe?
Dave, I'm trying to repeat coach speak on why this stuff matters, and Dave is the typical reporter being like, yeah, that's BS. That's BS. That's BS. It is still another practice. Come on. It's not as long as it's not as goofy as the Butch Jones skills challenges that they were doing in 2017. It's still another practice at the end of the day. Is it much different from this, Dave, back they used to hold every now and then they held an open scrimmage, didn't they? During the Fulmer years?
Yes.
Is it much different from that? It's an open scrimmage. So come on.
I think you got more done in the open scrimmage, to be honest with you.
You think Fulmer got more done in the open scrimmage than on the spring game?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do anything the spring game. I don't. And they're going to have a couple of orchestrated deep passes from Nico to Mike Matthews, and it's call it a day, and hope that McIntyre looks fantastic. That would get everybody excited because everybody loves the backup quarterback. This is simple PR marketing 101.
Dave is basically saying, guys, don't watch the spring game. He's telling you guys that right now. He's saying don't watch it. I don't think
a lot of people are going to watch the spring game. I think we'll tell you what we think of it. By the way, Steve, nice enough. We've only got 15 likes and over 100 people in the chat. So please hit that like button. We really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, do so to this point. What down?
Every rep matters, Dave, even the mental ones.
Yes, it does.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
All right, third down is this from Coop, a chance for players fighting for a starting role to leave a lasting impression throughout the summer. I don't believe they're going to do that with the coaches. I believe that would be the 14 previous practices in which they've done that. So I believe your reputation is pretty much set headed into the summer, and you're not going to change it a lot in a spring game that's scaled down.
Okay, so on principle, I would say this is something that can make a spring game important. But see, Dave, not with this coaching staff. I'm with you. I think Josh Heupel makes decisions very, very, very early over who he wants to start. I think he goes with it and he sticks with it no matter what, and he stubbornly sticks with it. And I think that, we know this from when Josh Heupel was at Tennessee when he first took the job. Let's be honest. There was a spring game in 2021. Joe Milton wasn't on the roster yet, but he had already committed to Tennessee. Heupel kept Joe Milton on the sidelines to watch the spring game, and Joe Milton was going to be the starter from the time he committed to Tennessee. There was never a fair open competition in 2021 for that. Heupel has his mind made up over who he wants to start, and he works with that as much as he possibly can.
Yeah. I don't think that anybody's going to change the starting lineup based off what they do Saturday in the spring game. Lastly, Coop, what down?
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
It's another way to involve the fans. I think there's some truth to that, as a lot of fans are priced out of going to a game now that it's not on TV. I think you'll have some more fans go. You involve the fans. The weather's supposed to be nice. So, there's significance in that. because a lot of fans are getting outpriced and are going to continue to do that. So, yeah, for now, it's good. I don't know that the spring game's going to be around 5 years from now.
Well, it's twofold. And by the way, we've talked about ways to make the spring game great. Now, I'll address those in 1 second. But first, it's a way to involve the fans. Also, they charge for it now. It's another way for more money because they got to pay players. Given the fact that Nico's out here negotiating money, you kind of need all the money you can get, right? And this is why, though, I agree spring games going out the window to a certain degree, but this is why the NCAA rejecting the Colorado-Syracuse game was so ridiculous. There is a huge opportunity here in the spring game, and I keep saying this, guys. Have two schools play each other on a neutral field, bring in all the revenue. It doesn't count towards the season, but the revenue generated from that game, the winner gets it all. And they split it in terms of the players get a check, so they have something to play for, and then the school gets a certain amount of money that they can spend on players in the future. And then everybody's going to watch it at that point, aren't they, Dave? Like, every fan base would watch that if they knew that their school was playing for some money.
I'm all for changes, but it's not going to happen this year. So I look at Tennessee and what they hope to get done in spring camp the spring game. I just think they hope that, especially with the news that Nico could be renegotiating his contract, don't you think they just hope that you come away from this? Well, two ways, actually. How about this, Caleb? If you think that you're going to re-sign Nico and you're happy about that, you want him to look fantastic because there might be a report where he gets an extra $1 million a year. But if you think that Nico's overrated in the back of Josh Heupel's mind, you might hope that Merklinger or McIntyre have a huge day so that you can determine exactly who your next quarterback is because you don't believe it's Nico. That could be the situation as well.
So you're saying they might set up Nico to fail tomorrow because that way they can make him look bad so other schools may not be willing to offer him as much money as he's trying to put up when he's negotiating. That is so diabolical, Dave. See, the spring game matters.
I said that it would be better if that is the case, if you're ready to move on, it would be better to have McIntyre or Merklinger look fantastic. I don't think you're trying to make him look bad in front of other schools.
I don't know, Dave. Sounds like you are. This is like who would be okay? What coach in history would be diabolical enough to do that? Would Nick Saban be diabolical enough to do that?
No, I don't know that it's a bad move now that we hash it out publicly, quite honest with you.
I mean, setting up your quarterback to fail seems kind of genius, doesn't it?
I mean, they're not on TV anymore, so other schools wouldn't, but schools are going to get the tape. So what if you call the most difficult plays? Nico's only going to play like 10, 15 plays. You call the most difficult plays possible. And by the way, Tavante calls me diabolical, Dave. Maybe I am that. But you heard his stock in the orange and white game, which means nothing. As much as I hate to say it, this idea is growing on me.
Yeah. Maybe even do something like hold him out for a play and just tell everybody he was banged up. So, like, make him look nimble too.
Or here's the ultimate way to do it. This is why Tennessee didn't recruit Cam Newton, is because he was suspended for the first play of one of his community college games. So maybe you just suspend him so there was an off-the-field issue and you run him out there with the second team. That's the way to completely undermine him.
Oh, my gosh, you're right. Isn't that what NFL teams do where they bring up character questions about players they're trying to re-sign and because they don't want other teams to throw money at them? Yeah.
Well, they do. I think that's what's happening with James Pierce and the character issues.
Oh, that's a great point.
Right. I think there's some franchises that draft later in the first round, and they like to see him drop.
I think you're right. That's exactly what that is. All right, we have solved it. This is perfect.
Okay, Dylan, are you serious about that? That Nico? Okay, we're gonna get to that. If you're serious about that, we'll follow up with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker because this thing may have amped up a little bit. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Will West of the Sports Animal will join us next. Stay tuned. More after this with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off Thug Sports.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months. and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute.
And here we go.
It was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Okay. Well, I guess this just got more interesting. As if you're going to look at this real quick, Caleb, while I bring in Will West, I want to get your thoughts. I'm going to email you this. Apparently, a report from Austin Price, but I'm not 100% sure. If you can double check before I share it. Well, I'll go ahead and share it now. We're not 100% sure that this is Austin Price. It says assistant editor, and I'm assuming it's on the message board at VolQuest. Said, quote, there was no practice access today, but I'm told Nico was not at practice today. I don't know if or when Tennessee will comment on this, with nothing scheduled till after the orange and white game tomorrow. So we bring Will West in of the Sports Animal WNML Afternoons with Tyler and Will. Will, how are you, sir?
Doing well. I'll just tell you, he wasn't at practice today. So, like, that's unless I got a half dozen people lying to me, Nico was not at practice today.
Well, okay. This is breaking news right now. So
this is breaking news. Click the I mean, this is bigger to me than the social media going back and forth between Nikos and Iamaleava's father. Excuse me.
Yeah. Okay. So I've talked to a lot of people on this, and I'll be real. Yesterday, it was kind of I don't want to say rip Nico fest, but we literally, so we have our text line and it goes through a paid software system. We had more than 1,200 unique individuals who texted during our 4-hour show yesterday. And I would say 70% of them said, let him walk. And so what I have been told since, as I try to do this, and I'm not like big J, capital J journalist or anything like that. I'm not like, that's not really what I do. But I know a lot of the people involved, and I know a lot of people around this side of things. What I am told is this. Nico's camp did not put this out. Nico's camp did not want this out. Nico's camp, they are negotiating. It's not like that as far as putting the gun on the table of he's threatening with the transfer portal or anything, but the way it got leaked out looks that way. There are some people who believe it was someone from Spire, maybe not Spire as a whole, someone from Spire who leaked this out, thinking they could get Nico to go ahead and sign. What Nico wants help. Nico wants more weapons around him and another offensive lineman. I don't even think Nico wants more money. I think he wants help, from what I am told. And instead, and someone was thinking they could either, whether it's for Spire or an intermediary, thought they could kind of pressure his family to get past the finish line this week and leak that out. And it's all blown up at Nico, because when you read the report from Pete with On3, it reads like what every other player has done when they're entering the transfer portal or threatening to go to another team if they don't get more money. That's not what's happening here from what I am told by a lot of people. I was told Nico was not at practice today. We'll see. I know Austin's reporting the same thing, that Nico was not at practice. He was told the same thing I was, that Nico was not at practice today. This isn't good. I think someone was trying to help that knows about as much about PR as I do about hanging drywall. And so now this is the kind of situation you find yourself in. But I don't think this came from Nico's camp. And don't get me wrong, I think they're a pain in the backside, right? I do. I think that they can be a pain in the backside. This ain't from them, I don't believe. And I don't know anyone who believes it is from them. And so there are people on the coaching staff who aren't happy. There are people in the administration that aren't happy. The players aren't happy. The Nico's camp's not happy. Him not being at practice today is not good. At the same time, think about it, Dave. You and I both have a kid about the same age, right? My daughter is literally Nico's age. Would you let your kid go out there and play at the orange and white game tomorrow and get booed over something you didn't leak out there that's not exactly true?
Okay, so here's my issue, Caleb. I'm sorry to jump in front of you, but this seems to me like it's grown another head, so to speak. And that is, it appears that Nico's upset about the PR backlash, whereas we were just discussing an hour ago that the money could be the biggest hurdle in getting him to play at Tennessee. Now it seems like both sides have hurt feelings, and that can be even more troublesome than a little bit of cash.
Yeah, no, and again, it wasn't, from what I am told, it was less about the money. The money is fine, or maybe a little bit of a bump is what was going to happen, and that both sides had agreed on the money. It was a matter of Nico, and again, I do believe Nico was not signing. I don't think Nico was going anywhere. I don't think the family was going anywhere. I think he's happy. I think he really likes Josh Heupel. I think that I have been told by a lot of people he went to his coaches and teammates after what happened on the Instagram thing in, was it December, January, and told them I didn't want to do this. My dad made me do it. And so and now even the dad's happy with everything outside of they want more help. Think about Tennessee. I mean, think about if you're Nico, and I'm not trying to just be the mouthpiece for them, because again, I think they can be a pain in the backside a little bit. But if you're Nico right now, you don't have really a full complement of receivers at your disposal. Not any of them are proven receivers outside of Chris Brazzell, which it doesn't look like his skill set fits incredibly well with Nico's. So he wants another receiver, and I get that, because if you deal with a couple of receiver injuries, they had 3 big receiver injuries last year. You deal with that this year, you don't have warm bodies out there, and you end up looking like Jackson Arnold, and that hurts your draft stock. I think he wants another offensive lineman, and I would want another offensive lineman as well. Now, would I drag my feet on signing a deal when I don't plan on going anywhere to try to see if I can get some help? I don't know if I would do that, but they definitely, from what I am told, on the team side, on Nico's side, on everybody's side, none of them were trying to make this public, and no one has threatened to enter the transfer portal, which is kind of how Pete's report reads, right? And I know he didn't say those words, but when you say it is unclear whether this will affect him entering the transfer portal, which opens next week, that's what you're implying, right? At the end of the day, Pete's done this long enough that he knows that that's what you're implying. And I'm not saying Pete is a bad source. I'm saying somebody on the representative side, whether it was the NIL side or an intermediary between Spire and Nico, I believe a lot of people believe that someone on the Spire side leaked this, or someone in between Spire and Nico leaked this, thinking they were going to help push this across the finish line ahead of the orange and white game. And instead, the whole thing is just blown up at Nico, and no one anticipated that. Because again, look, all of us, all 3 of us do this for a living. We deal with the public for a living. We deal with we deal with Tennessee fans for a living. That's our customer base. We would all know, that's stupid. Don't do this. I think someone was trying to help, and they ended up just dropping a big old turd in the punch bowl. And now I think no one knows how to fix it from here. Because I'll be very real. If that's my kid, I would look at it and say, well, we weren't going anywhere, and I don't know if we're going to now after you burned us with the entire fan base when we did nothing. When the one time we did nothing wrong, then you burn us.
So, well, with that in mind, would Nico's, if they were to look to go somewhere else, because if this wasn't Tennessee's fault, and if this wasn't Nico's team's fault, and if this was some third party's fault, you would think Nico would understand that. So would the thing that lead him and the family to want to leave be the way people on y'all's call-in shows or people on our comment section or just what they're hearing from Tennessee fans now? Is that what's turning them off more than anything else?
Have you burned the bridge? I mean, the thing that comes with something like this, like right now, you're a CMO of a company in East Tennessee. Do you want Nico to be the face of your product right now?
Probably not with the family and the social media.
Yeah, you don't. Now, on the other hand, I don't think Nico's family knows how to do this stuff that well either. Or because why would you wait 9 hours after the report comes out to say, dude, we didn't have anything to do with this? And from what I have been told by some people who believe they thought that the coach from California who works as the intermediary, that him going on social media immediately and saying this isn't true would be enough that people would believe it's not true. But nobody knows that that guy has the relationship that he manages California kids coming to the Southeast. Nobody knows that. So you may know that. I know that. But the other people out there don't know that. Also, people like that are intermediaries lie a lot. And so when you see something like that from a guy who's broken everybody that like is transferred, Ricky Gibson go to the transfer portal, and then he wasn't. Tennessee promised him money. Another school offered him more. Tennessee promised him market value. Another school offered him way more than market value. He threatened to enter the transfer portal ahead of spring practice to get Tennessee to go ahead and sign on the dotted line and to start paying him instead of waiting till after spring practice, because if he tears his ACL, is Tennessee going to pay him? Maybe not. So Pete was the one that broke that. So he's broken a lot of this news. I think somebody was trying to help. I've told by a lot of people. There was someone that was trying to help, and they greatly hindered, and they did not realize that the fan base was going to have this kind of backlash to Nico. And I'm not blaming the fan base. I thought exactly the same thing all the fans did, and I bet you guys did as well, right?
Yeah. New poll question that's on our YouTube page. We'd love for you to vote for that. And I'm going to ask Will this very question. That is this. Do you 100% believe Nico will be the Vols starter this season? Yes, okay. There we go.
No, go ahead.
Yes, he's the man, gets 72% of the vote. No, this isn't going to work out. 28% of the vote. I tend to be, as far as 100%, I'm with you, Will, based off what you've just told me.
So you think Nico's gone, Will?
No, I don't. I just don't think it's 100% there yet. I think there's a great relationship that's fractured now that was caused on the Tennessee side and that Tennessee has to work out. And I would not be surprised. Some people believe that Nico was told he didn't have to practice today by the coaching staff because they are sympathetic to his side of things because the coaching staff has no desire for him to go. They love him. He loves them. Everybody on that side is fine. But somebody leaked this that wasn't supposed to, thinking they're helping. I have been told by a lot of people. Some people believe it was on the Spire side. Some people believe it was one individual at Spire thinking they were helping. And instead, the whole thing is blown up at Nico as if he was trying to pressure Tennessee for the second time in 3 months. And I think behind the scenes, he was trying to pressure them to go get a couple more players. But I don't think he was threatening to leave by any stretch of the imagination.
A lot of new viewers on board, so be sure and click that subscribe button so you get the latest from us, as we're weekdays at 10 a.m. on YouTube and wherever you podcast. It's not my nature, Will, to criticize another person's reporting. But based off what you said, I got a little bit of a problem with the Pete Nakos report if he doesn't get into the fact that Nico and his family wanted more help, that it's not just a money grab. To me, that's a big, monstrous omission.
No, and if he didn't know that, he may not have known that. But I will say what Pete should have said if what Nico's dad is correct on the reporting side. And again, you guys have worked as a reporter. I am not a reporter, right? That's not what I do. I couldn't deal with everything you have to deal with as a reporter all the time. So but I know enough from sharing an office with Jimmy Hyams for more than a decade that if Jimmy Hyams called someone that a source gave him a report about someone, he called and talked to that person, and that person said it's not true, he would have put in their report that the person's denied it, right?
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So Pete, if Nico's dad said it's not true, why didn't Pete put that in the report? That's the problem that I have a little bit with the reporting, I would say.
Well, the question is, did Pete call Nico's dad?
Nico's dad says he did. Call him and ask for said that he has a source that he trusts his life on, that a source that he trusts his life on that said this was happening. Nico said, I told him it's not true. And Pete didn't run that aspect of it. Like, Dave, you've done this long enough. I've worked with and around you long enough to know if you did a report on, hey, Will West is leaving the sports animal and he's going to go. Yeah, you call me and I said, that's not true. Even if you ran the report, you would say Will West denies that, right? Inside the column.
Yes. I mean, that to me is odd. Why you wouldn't include that.
And also and the thing is, one of the things this is one of the problems with internet media, by the way, when it comes to reporting, a lot of times that newspapers would never do with headline writing. They will, like, Dave, you know this, headline writing, you make a splash, but you don't be deliberately misleading with your headlines, even if it draws in more readers. Pete Nakos was implying with that headline that Nico was definitely looking elsewhere. There's a paragraph in the story, in that actual story, that says Nico's very happy with Tennessee, very happy at his time there. The coaches are very happy. Everybody's happy. Everybody loves their time. I'm like, that kind of almost directly contradicts the implication of the headline, doesn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, you guys know it is, the guy that writes the story doesn't get to write the headline. So that's
that. Philip Fulmer still calls me randomly about that.
I have a friend whose job it is for a massive media company to write headlines. You know what I mean? And that's what he does, is allocate workload and write headlines. And so it doesn't mean that, yes, that's what Pete was trying to say. Although if you're Pete, again, how do you get the subject of your piece denies what your source is telling you, and you don't put that the subject is denying it? That's the only thing that I have a problem with Pete doing this. And again, the world's changed a lot since we all started doing this how many ever years ago, but I don't love that necessarily. If look, most people I have talked to believe someone at Spire leaked this, whether it was Spire knew about it or one person at Spire threw this out trying to get the deal done. And they didn't think it was going to blow back on Nico because of all the nice things they said about it. And now it's all blown back on Nico. Think about this. Like, if Nico plays tomorrow, is he going to get booed?
Quite possibly, which leads me to this, because it sounds like you're pretty tied in there, and Nico blocked me a long time ago, so I'm not.
I don't even follow the kids, honestly.
Yeah. Is Nico's family a problem?
They're a pain. There's a difference between someone's a pain and a problem. I would say some of our bosses at times have said that I'm a pain, right? So especially when I would say not with today's Tennessee administration, but with the old administration in Tennessee when Dave was there and stuff like that, Dave Hart. I bet there were a lot of people in my office that when they tried to negotiate those contracts thought that I was a pain. So I think they're a pain. I don't think they're a problem necessarily, but I think they're a pain. I think they have been a problem at times. But I think they're a pain, nothing you can't live with, nothing you can't deal with.
Yeah, well, I want to ask specifically, though, about Nico's dad, because let's be honest. I'm not like that old, like, oh, you got to be all straight-laced and decorum and all of that. But, like, being the father of a player and referring to a reporter as B-word Nikos on Twitter, like, isn't that a bad look?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not great. Again, I'm not saying they're not a pain. Like, I'm absolutely saying that they can be a pain. I will say this: I believe the kid loves Josh Heupel. I believe the kid loves his teammates. I believe the teammates love the kid. It's a matter of, but I do think the dad, sometimes to a fault, has a little bit of LeVar Ball in him, and not to that extent. He has a little bit of that in him. There's another side of it, though, too. Think about this: if this is your kid, and you're getting paid a lot of money, and you expect your kid to throw the ball 35 times a game, and he goes and he's a game manager last year, and Tennessee gets to the playoff, and Tennessee wins with defense around the football, and Nico looks like he's playing quarterback for Mark Stoops because he's throwing the ball 23 times a game. That is going to hurt his NFL stock, right? Like, that is going to hurt him. I get being upset. I don't think he's the only one. I think Mike Matthews' family wasn't happy with the way he was used by Tennessee last year as well. But it was the thing that got you to win as many games as possible, right? So it's a tough balancing act because you don't want to go full John Calipari where, oh, we don't care about winning games. I care about getting these first-round draft picks. But you also have to develop and play these players and get them developed for the next level, or you're not going to have more five-star guys. And Josh Heupel's job is to win games at Tennessee. He's done that. But that may mean at times parents are like, wait a minute, you could have developed my son more. And he could have probably developed Nico more last year, but it wasn't the way for Tennessee to win the most football games.
Okay, so you're Nico's dad. Are you, and what we know now, things can change, but what we know now, are you saying, son, I think you should go out there in the orange-white game and play? You might get booed. You might blow out an ACL. Or, son, you should just go ahead and fly back to California and we'll hit the beach.
Honestly, it would depend on how I handle things behind the scenes. How are things going behind the scenes, especially with the families in Cali right now? And I guess they're all probably coming in. I would look at it and say, wait a minute, are all y'all in on this? Right? Is the administration okay with this? Is the coaching staff okay with this? And I don't think the coaching staff is. Or is this one dude at Spire or one woman at Spire who leaked something they shouldn't have, or someone who works as an intermediary, because there are people who work in contract law that are going to be contract people that come in and work for them. Is it one intermediary that said this, and are y'all going to clean this up? If y'all are going to clean this up, he'll be out there, he'll take his lumps, he'll get booed, and I would say part of the process, man. This is how you learn to deal with the public, because you're going to go in the NFL and you're going to get booed a whole lot more than you are in Knoxville. But if I looked at it and everybody was stumping for, and no one was willing to backtrack on what was said, if it's not true, I would probably be looking to play elsewhere, if I'm just being very honest.
Well, and Caleb, I'm going to toss this to you, but at some point, I think Tennessee fans need to let go a little bit of Nico. And is he an A-plus player? I don't know that he is. Is Merklinger close? Is McIntyre going to be close? I think they could be.
I don't know that they're that close. I also think Nico's way ahead. You know what I mean? And again, I don't believe.
I'm not talking about necessarily for this year.
Oh, yeah.
If you had to make that sort of break, you're not just thinking about September. You're thinking about the next 2 years.
You are. Look, I'm not a huge fan of the Tennessee's doing it so well that I get. Well, you have to keep going down this road because you're pot committed. But I don't know that it's the best. I asked somebody when all this was happening with Nico in December and January. There was someone I know that a Big Ten schools were looking at that wanted to be here. And he is not the pro prospect Tennessee is, but he's better than Nico right now. And I said, why don't you just let Nico walk if it's really about more money and pay this guy half? He'll take that and let him come in. And they said the optics of it. You can't let that 5-star guy walk and then we bring this new guy in and 2 other 5 stars transfer behind that. Like, the secession plan, I don't love. You look at it, 8 of the 12 teams in the college football playoff, their quarterback was in the transfer portal. So let somebody else be, instead of Texas paying Arch Manning $6 million before he takes a snap as the franchise quarterback, the starting quarterback at Texas, I would let somebody else incur that, and I would just go look at the rest of the mid-major schools or smaller power conference schools and say, that's my minor leagues. That's what I would do if I was Tennessee, but you're pot committed to where you're at right now. They don't want Nico to leave. Nico doesn't need to leave. Nico's upside is all still there. What he has to learn to do, Nico, I think Tennessee made some bad decisions in the wide receiver side last year. They tried to run real legitimate routes because there had been that complaint against Heupel's guys that you come from a run and shoot, you don't run routes, you run to grass, you run to the open area. And I think they tried to run routes last year and it didn't work. And I think you get them back to run to grass. I think Nico needed to see a guy completely open instead of anticipating it. I think Nico was not a guy who was comfortable throwing the ball up to Chris Brazzell one-on-one and letting him make a play. I just don't think he was there as far as his development. But if you think about the rest of the quarterbacks in Nico's class, the only one that was more developed than Nico was Sam Levitt at Arizona State. He was ahead of Arch. He was ahead of Jackson Arnold. And those 2 guys were ahead of him in the recruiting rankings. So the potential and upside still there for Nico. I agree. I don't think Merklinger's that far behind on upside. But to me, the only way Tennessee reaches the goals you want to have for getting back to the playoff is that Nico becomes Hendon Hooker 2 years ago. And Nico has the physical abilities to become Hendon Hooker 2 years ago. So why let him walk over something petty that a lot of people I have spoken to believe was just an honest mistake? Somebody thought they were going to pressure this past the goal line between now and tomorrow. And instead it's all blown up at Nico, even though for once and here's the problem too, if you act like they have at times and you're a pain like they have. How many fans, even with me saying this, believe that Nico's family wasn't behind this, right? And that's part of it is you cry wolf so many times that eventually, and we all remember the Nico vague Instagram posts. So a lot of fans, even if they're told point blank it wasn't from Nico, are going to believe it's from Nico because you did this 4 months ago.
Portions of the program brought to you by Newbrook Collision Center. For nearly 50 years, Newbrook Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. The link is right down below. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Caleb?
All right, well, so we talked about how you clean this up. Okay, so now you're Tennessee. How do you clean this up if you're Tennessee? Because you got two issues here. You got this PR backlash that just blew up in your face that's not your fault. But you also have Nico's family and his dad acting a way that a dad, quite honestly, up front, I'm just going to say, shouldn't act publicly. So how do you clean this up if you're Tennessee?
I think on this one, you have to go to the media and say, this isn't true, right? That's what you have to do. Whoever on the, whether it's on the whether it's Spire or an intermediary for Spire or someone within the athletics department or staff, somebody has to come out and say what Pete said wasn't true. Even if it was true-ish or truly, I think that you have to blow this up as quickly as possible. And the longer people stay quiet about it, the worse this is going to get. This is not a blowover situation. Tennessee fans are passionate about their football program. And this is the first time we've seen this from anybody really in NIL. Like a lot of people yesterday in our text line were saying, well, isn't this happening in other places? And my question was, okay, where? Where is something like this happening at any other school? It's not, right? So I think if you're Tennessee, you have to go squash this immediately or it's going to look really bad on you. And also the other side is this. I will tell you, I believe other players are not happy about this. I believe other players' parents are not happy about this. Even ones that maybe don't necessarily get along with Nico's parents. I believe they're not happy about this. And so I've spoken to 5 people this morning.
Yeah, what are they unhappy about, though?
That it was put out like there when it wasn't true and it makes the kid look bad, right? That somebody trying to get a business deal done is willing to let a 20-year-old kid look like a big jerk that didn't do it this time. That's the thing I believe that a lot of them are unhappy about. And again, I'm on 5 people on that side that are saying, oh, these people are mad, these people are mad. Like there's a lot of people who are who really are looking at this saying this is incredibly shady and could it happen to us next?
Well, you're not going to eliminate parents. And for those that have called out some people in the message board, trust me, every kid's parents just about has some input as to whether or not their kid should play more, play less, what position he should play. So this isn't unusual. What's unusual is that it's all public knowledge because this used to be a debate about private payments. And I'm curious, if you're Tennessee, do you have any leverage over Nico's family to say, maybe it's time to get off Twitter? Because I don't think they do nowadays.
I think from what I believe is Tennessee was upset that Nico's family didn't get on Twitter fast and deny this if it was true.
Okay.
If it wasn't true, like why did you wait 9 hours? You know what I mean? So to say, hey, this wasn't true, and I believe the family thought the intermediary guy was enough, and it wasn't because they don't know things, right? I mean, unless you work in this world, you don't know how this is going to work, right? We all work in this world. It's our job to know how the algorithm is going to work. So. I believe they didn't know. I believe they also let it linger out there. But I think the biggest thing Tennessee needs to do to make this relationship right is get this squashed as fast as possible. And maybe Tennessee just wants Nico to hurry up and sign and shut up. I don't know. But from what did you read CBS's sports reports about it? And I don't know the other 2 guys in there, but John Talty's pretty good at his job, pretty darn good at his job. But he said, talking to people at Tennessee, that they were upset that if it wasn't true that Nico didn't squash it. Well, people on the Nico side are saying it's not true. People on the university side are saying it's not true, that it wasn't Nico that did it this time. And that to me says, okay, well then you have to look at who else it might be. And you have to, I don't know if you've got to weed that out or go on some witch hunt or anything like that about it, but what you have to do is shut it down ASAP, especially with Nico not practicing today. You have to shut that down. So let me ask you guys, how does it look if Nico, even though it's not my show, sorry. How does it look if Nico doesn't play in the orange and white game tomorrow? What is the messaging there?
I think it makes him look worse, Caleb. I think the messaging is pretty clear that he's either upset about a potential injury or he's just not happy with the cash he's getting. So, I think it makes him look worse. The one thing you're suggesting, Will, is the way to do this. Open communication is always the way to handle an issue. But I just think that flies in the face of what Josh Heupel believes. He's a secretive guy. I think partly because of what happened in Oklahoma. He's a little bit paranoid. I don't think he's going to come out and air his dirty NIL laundry.
Well,
I don't think he's. What do you think, Caleb?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say, I actually think it makes the university look worse. Look, let's be honest, guys. Part of what Josh Heupel and Danny White have marketed, and I talked about this at the top of the hour, top of our show. Tennessee declared open war on the NCAA right now. Last year, they got a lot of support, fighting for Nico's right to do just this. You know what I mean? So, on top of that, Danny White has given off the impression that Tennessee's very on top of its NIL game more than anybody else. It doesn't look like that now, does it?
It does not. It's like you're absolutely right. And again, this is why to me you shut it down. There's also like we used to see this even when people who thought like Butch used to always think he was really good at marketing, right? Like he really thought that because he read a couple books and never had his hands in it, and thought because he read some books he knew what to do. And the one thing Butch never understood was you can't control most narratives. The narratives, it's going to have the life that it's going to have. It's like a wave. You ride it. You don't try to control where the wave goes. So I think Tennessee on this one needs to not try to control the wave. They need to ride the wave. They have smart people over there. Danny White's smart. Alicia's smart. I know coaches kind of get to run their own little fiefdom and they get to be dictators usually. But I don't know if Josh Heupel cares as much as some of those other dudes. I think he's just an introverted guy that doesn't like to talk about things. And so I think you rely on your experts here. You have experts in that building. Go rely on your experts. They need to get it out as quickly as possible about whoever leaked this needs to get it shut down as fast as possible. And yes, that person looks like an idiot, but you let them look like an idiot versus having all this, right? All this where you have another report now. I've gotten texted that Nico didn't practice. So, I mean, that's a lot of people reporting the same thing. Again, he goes on the field tomorrow. Fans are going to boo him no matter what you do to try to fix this. He doesn't play tomorrow. It looks even worse than that. And so, to me, the only way you repair this is somebody's got to look like an idiot, and both sides have to get out publicly and say this is not true.
Let me ask you this, and I'll let you go with this, Will. You can listen to Will 3 to 7 Eastern on the Sports Animal, WNML. Not practicing was blank. Nico not practicing on Friday was blank.
The right move. It's not the fun move. It's not the feel-good move, but it's probably the right move. The right move is step away until this is completed. And I think it is. Is just walk away for a sec to get all this done. Maybe even not practicing the day. But if I need to get reps for the guys, I understand the point of view. If I was in Nico's family's position, one, we wouldn't have done the Instagram post and all that junk back in the day or back a few months ago. But I probably wouldn't have I would tell my kid, go out there, look, hey, if Tennessee's willing to go squash this and you go out there, they're going to boo you. But, 3 months from now, no one's going to care because people don't remember anything. That's what I would tell them. But if Tennessee's not talking, shutting it down, and you're the only one talking, shutting it down, then I don't know that it's in anybody's best interest for Nico to be out there right now. And I also think it sends the message to Tennessee that if you want to play shady games, or maybe not even Tennessee's coaching staff or athletics department, but whoever at Tennessee, if what all of these people telling us are true, then it sends that message to we can walk away and you need to get your house in order. That's the message I would probably be trying to send right now.
I want to jump in because there's a little bit of more breaking news, not much, but Chris Lowe just got in and reported that not only did he not show up for practice, but it was a complete surprise to the Tennessee staff and the Tennessee players that he did not show up for practice.
Jeez.
So apparently they were not expecting him to not show up for practice today. So
okay, goodness. Yeah, I was going to go dumb, Will. I was going to go not showing up. We're completely opposite on that.
Yeah.
I think it makes it more of a story. I know you got a show to prepare for. Tell us what's coming up on from 3 to 7 on the Sports Animal.
Take a while. Guess what our A topic is today? I'll tell you what it's not. The orange and white game. So,
defensive tackle.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about how the wide receivers look. So we're going to talk a lot about this. We've been talking to a lot of people about it. Literally, I had a half dozen people call me between 9 and 10 a.m. I had one person send me a text saying, pay attention to this. And so I sent a few texts out, literally a half dozen people call me between 9 and 10 a.m. We'll keep working that, try to find out as much information as possible. But with all this happening, man, if Tennessee, if they want this relationship right, somebody needs to come out and start talking quickly.
Yeah,
that's in their nature. All right, Will, great stuff, buddy. We'll talk to you, and we look forward to following you on the Sports Animal from 3 to 7 and your Twitter, Will West WNML.
Yeah, I'm rarely on there except during games. But if you'd like to watch me tweet about Rangers and Celtics games, I'd like to invite you to follow me on Twitter.
Hey, I'm a Celtics fan. That's a good follow.
There you go.
Hey, buddy. Will West of the Sports Animal. Stay tuned. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. So apparently Tennessee's staff and players taken aback by no Nico. 2 minutes off the hook, Sports.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American made. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Save up to $4,350 on a new Ford F-150 XLT or get into a new Ford Ranger XLT with no payments for 90 days. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute.
And here we go. This was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
So the news is what Chris Lowe is reporting, and that is Nico did not show up to practice, and that was a surprise to his fellow teammates and coaches. Now, let me give a quick background if I can. Here's the way this used to work. If a player's family, or in this particular case, as Will West alluded to, it might be an agent, they had a problem, they would go to the media and they would express that issue. Why? Because a lot of the best players were getting paid. And the last thing you're going to do is go to a reporter and say, or go public and say, I was getting paid. I want my money, because that used to be illegal. It's not illegal anymore. So you have these players' families who are willing to go public. So that gives them more leverage, a lot more leverage. There have been a ton of players' families that were disgruntled. This, though, is another level because of the leverage, something that, quite frankly, I've never covered before. So Chris Lowe of ESPN saying Tennessee quarterback Nico Iamaleava, amid reports that he wanted to renegotiate his NIL deal, did not show up at Friday morning's practice, sources told ESPN. Here's the newsy part that nobody's had till this point, and kudos for Chris Lowe for reporting that just minutes ago. A surprise to Tennessee staff members and players. I didn't get all of it.
I'm sorry. I apologize. That was an accident.
A surprise to Tennessee staff member and players. Iamaleava's reps denied Thursday there was any renegotiation talk. I'm not disputing what Chris is reporting. I'm not disputing what Will's reporting. I'm just saying this is a big, huge, monstrous mess. And somebody on the message board posted, this is why Nick Saban retired. It absolutely is. This is before the orange and white game. When does a player do this the day before the Georgia game? Because
yes, you have some leverage. The transfer portal is about to open. You always have leverage to go to the transfer portal. But theoretically, you have more with the orange and white game. Guys, the orange and white game is not any more of a game than a typical practice is. He's going to be wearing the green jersey. If he goes out there, he's not going to get hit. There is no risk for further injury any more than there was at practice today. So my question, Caleb, is can this mess be fixed not only by the orange and white game, but over the course of the summer?
I think it can be fixed over the course of the summer. But there's a lot of repairing to do. Now, if what Will is reporting is true, I don't think, funny enough, this is going to hurt chemistry with the players, because I feel like a lot of players, if this is all happening and if what's going on with Nico telling people what his dad was saying back in January is true, then I feel like a lot of players just feel sympathy for Nico, don't you? A lot of them just feel bad that he's in this situation. But
very likable guy too.
Right. But not showing up for practice and not letting anybody know you're not showing up for practice, that's like, I understand what Will is saying, not showing up for practice till this gets settled. But you don't tell anybody. You shock everybody you did that. David,
sounds like an Aaron Rodgers thing.
Yeah, and if you don't fix if it's because Tennessee fans got to you yesterday with some of the comments they were making, what do you think they're going to say now? I'm just going to say this anecdotally, reading on Twitter. This morning, there was some let him walk talk yesterday, but most of what I saw, Dave, was, okay, we don't know if the report's true. Let's let it happen. Now with this report that he wasn't at practice, everything I'm reading on Twitter is let him walk by. I'm done. I mean, I'm reading from what I'm reading from Tennessee fans, they are totally out on this guy now.
Okay, well, see, I'm seeing the opposite. I'm seeing paid. So, I mean, we can make that our poll question once again if you want to. Now, the fact that that might change it. As a matter of fact, this might be the first time we run the same poll question 2 times in a show because things have changed. The fact that he didn't show up for practice without telling his teammates or his staff. Now, I'll tell you this. I don't know that you're supposed to, if you're doing some sort of protest, I don't know that you're supposed to tell your bosses, which in this case would be the coaching staff. I really have trouble believing that Mike Matthews, who he just took to California with him, that he didn't know Nico was not going to practice. Did everybody on the team know? Did the third string defensive tackle know? Maybe not. But yeah, and just to me, I think you're trying to make a statement. I think some players probably know.
Yes, I think I maybe he told somebody personally. By the way, as I'm pulling up different reports, Pete Thamel says that he has been in conversations with Tennessee about a new contract. But maybe Pete Thamel citing on 3, who knows? So, but that's another reliable report. A lot of this is just there's so many things going on here, guys. The way I look into it is some of what Will was talking about. There were expected negotiations between Nico and Tennessee. Someone leaked things to get the ball rolling, and neither side wanted this leaked. And where I break with Will, Dave, maybe it's someone with Spire. It could just be some low-level idiot who works at the university that doesn't know what they're doing. That
an offensive analyst.
It could. What if it's this? Okay, can I go?
Be a coordinator.
Conspiracy hat, offensive analyst, or position coach. Lincoln Riley at USC gave them a call and said, hey, why don't you leak this story, create a rift, and then once Nico hits the transfer portal, I'll get him, and then I'll bring you on at a higher role than you're on at Tennessee right now.
Yeah, I go back to all this kumbaya talk of Mike Matthews going back to L.A. with Nico. Is that really where they want them? Right in the shadow of Southern California's campus? Really? After they've just they've run off a quarterback and they're going with another one that we don't really know how well he's participating in spring camp. I didn't like anything about him going to Cali. And some of you looked at me like, what are you doing, Dave? Are you just trying to make something out of nothing? No, I didn't. I think you go back. I mean, when you're only at a business theoretically for 3 years, which that's the idea. Yeah, I've been hired away by a company and I was with them for a year. How many times did I come back to Knoxville? Maybe once or twice. Did I bring the producer of the radio show with me? And no. And I just don't like anything about them going out to LA. Yes, don't like it.
So Who do you think feels more let down right now, the staff or the players, with Nico not being at practice?
I think the players are always going to side with the players. If there's one thing I've learned, it's they're always going to side with the players. I think the staff is probably miffed, to say the least. I think the staff is miffed at the report, perturbed that it's gotten to be at this point. But some of this Josh Heupel has to take responsibility for. He could have been out in front of this. He knew that Nico wasn't going to practice. He thought he could just hide it all away like he's done for most of his career. You should know at this point, headed into year 5, that the media scrutiny is much more difficult when you're the head coach at Tennessee than the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma.
Yeah, and it is weird, I have to say, that, like, did they play a game of chicken yesterday, Tennessee and Nico's family, to say which side is going to refute this first? Because that's what it feels like. And it seems like they didn't talk. And, I mean, we talk about this is why Nick Saban left. Guys, Nick Saban coached for 3 years in the NIL age. I'm just going to put this out there. Is there any way this is handled in the same way under Nick Saban?
I don't know. Would Nick Saban cut the guy? Is that what you're asking? What would he do?
No, I think Nick Saban would I think Nick Saban would talk to the player, before practice, make sure that they handled this PR-wise, and say, this is what we got to talk about.
Now, are we sure that he even showed up to practice? I mean, was he even in the locker room? I mean, it's not a situation where you can go out there and say, hey, Nico, we need to handle this right, if he doesn't show up at all.
Well, I think they should have called him in yesterday to handle this right. And then, honestly, look, I think Nick Saban would have called a press conference to address it. If I know anything about Nick Saban, I mean, this is a disaster all the way around. Just the way this has publicly been handled, honestly, has been a total disaster. And now, Nathaniel, I'm trying to pull up what you're saying, that reportedly Nico is negotiating a new contract. And well, we knew, but apparently there are some suggested reports that that's actually why he has.
Here's my issue too. Listen, you've upped the ante somehow, some way. The guy at Spire or whoever it was, whether it was assistant coach or whatever, he ups the ante. So now you're kind of all in, and you look like you lose face if you're Tennessee and you walk away from Nico, or you're Nico and you walk away. If you're Nico, you look like you were scared of competition or the big time stage or whatever the case might be. And if you're Tennessee, you're looking like you couldn't come up with the funds to pay him. So no matter which area you're in, you're going to lose face if you come to the negotiating table or the press conference podium and say, none of that's true. Everything's glory good and everything's fine.
No, they can't lie about this now. They kind of have to be upfront and address it. I mean, there's no way they can lie about anything that's happening. And you know, Josh Heupel has tried this in the past. Remember the Jeremy Bankson and Hooker saga? Josh Heupel really didn't want to go public about what happened with Jeremy Banks.
Right.
But like we all found out about it. You got to kind of address this, whatever happens. And also Danny White has to address this. Look, I want to point this out. Like, maybe this should be what we talk about in a second. I want to just finish with the players and the staff, but the administration looks really bad right now with what they have put themselves out there with how they've handled NIL.
Well, I'm not going to pretend to know everybody's NIL skeletons in their closet. So I don't know if other programs are dealing with that as well. But I know that Tennessee has looked like a befuddling moron in how they've dealt with it. They let Ricky Gibson walk into the portal, walk out. They let Mike Matthews do the same thing. Now the Nico situation. For the pioneers of NIL, they're looking like they're absolutely down on the plains. Like they've, what was it? The computer game that they've died of dysentery. I mean, as far as pioneers go, they're not looking like they're in front of the curve.
So let's ask this question. Has Tennessee been all talk for the last 2 years? You know how like in business, you've heard of businesses that do this, Dave. They hemorrhage money for a long time, but they just brand themselves so well that people invest and eventually they turn a profit.
Here's what I think they are, to answer your question. I think they're Lewis and Clark. I think they've gone out west. I think they've discovered it. But does anybody depend on Lewis and Clark to actually grow harvests and fields of food and actually set up a settlement? No. You expect them to go out there, be pioneers, find the land, draw us a map, and then we'll go out there and do the rest. Tennessee's been a pioneer. They've done that. And now they're stuffing the mess kit.
So it's like they want to sit there and brag about like the fact that they got out ahead of this, but they don't want to. But what's the truth is they didn't have a plan after it.
And it was Oregon Trail. Thank you, Nathaniel. A little before your time where you could die of dysentery.
You know what Tennessee's really doing, guys? We're talking about like as Nathaniel Kim says, fake it till you make it. Tennessee's in the NIL world, like in a way that Butch Jones rose to the coaching ranks, where Butch Jones faked it till he made it, basically. And I mean, it just feels like that's what they're doing. And I think this is a look. Let's go way back here, okay? Tennessee publicized the fact that Nico was getting $2 million a year when they signed him in 2022. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
They publicized that. They embrace NIL. They declare open war on the NCAA and win and become superstars to everybody for doing it on behalf of Nico's right to do this. And then this offseason, Ricky Gibson enters the portal. Mike Matthews enters the portal. Both come back. Boo Carter, by the way, tweets that he's staying at Tennessee when he never even entered the portal. We're kind of forgetting that one. Remember that, Dave?
Yep. Yep.
And then this whole Nico Iamaleava saga is carrying out. And we're starting to think, well, wait a minute. You guys, when Tennessee was landing players last year, what we heard, and Josh Pate was reporting it, they had put out this narrative that they haven't just thought about NIL-A. They've thought about NIL B, C, D, E, and F, including things like the pilot sponsorship. Danny White coming out and doing a talent fee. You know, we know that about that with Neyland Stadium, the entertainment district.
My question is everybody still peachy king over Josh Heupel without NIL? Okay, because they've been lumped together because of the timing of it, right? Josh Heupel is a great innovative offensive coach. NIL is going to offset the recruiting disadvantage that Tennessee faces by being in the state of Tennessee, by facing more prominent programs like Alabama and Georgia. NIL is going to offset it. Is Josh Heupel on his own reason enough to get this without NIL? Is he reason enough to keep Tennessee's fan base engaged and excited?
Without NIL, is he reason enough to keep his fan base engaged and excited? Well, there wasn't much NIL when he first got to Tennessee in 2021. And I think that was exciting what he did that first year, because that's one of the greatest overachieving jobs I've ever seen a head coach do. And going 7-6 should have warranted coach of the year that year. I think Josh Heupel still at the end of the day has a very, very good system. I think he's innovative with the system. He's proven he can adjust with the system. That doesn't mean he does everything right. But I don't think I can sit there and be totally out on Josh Heupel just because if Tennessee loses its NIL advantage. Now I'll say this.
But Caleb, how in year 4 do you not have an answer at the time?
Year 5.
No, year 4 last year.
Oh, year 4 last year.
How in year 4 do you not have an answer at the offensive tackle issue?
Well,
that's befuddling to me. And you're leaning on a guy that was just a true freshman transfer.
Well, this is where we're talking about Josh. By the way, Todd Hearn says Ricky never entered the portal. Todd, yes, he did, but he came back in. He's back at Tennessee. This is where we're talking about with Josh Heupel. I said this with the Joe Milton saga 2 years ago. I said, Josh Heupel, the coach, I got no questions about. I got none. Josh Heupel, the GM, which you are in college football and recruiting and roster building. Josh Heupel, the roster builder, that's been a red flag since he's been at UCF. Heupel's never proven himself as a roster builder, ever. He seems to have serious deficiencies in that regard. And this is why we talked about, it's funny that while all these schools are hiring a GM, Tennessee's not one of the ones getting ahead of the curve on that. If anybody needs a GM, it's Tennessee. Honestly, I don't think Josh Heupel's a great roster builder. And this is where you could put NIL into play. If Heupel's a bad roster builder and Tennessee doesn't have its NIL stuff together, man, that's a catastrophe with the type of roster you're going to have, isn't it?
Yes. New poll question on board. I want your thoughts on this, and it's a very serious one. You can go ahead and read that, Caleb. I'd appreciate that.
Let's see.
By the way, Unsung, what's a psyop? I heard that reference the other day. What do you know what a psyop is?
It's kind of like it's hard to explain, but it's like it's
Well, then let's not do it now.
It's
What's
like
the
it's something to distract you from like what's really happening. Like it's like a psychological operation is what it's short for. So you basically use
within any moment we're going to hear like Arian Carter's off the team for moving massive amounts of heroin. Like, to distract us, is that what this is about? I'm joking about Arian. Go ahead.
So your poll question is: Josh Heupel is closer to Butch Jones or Philip Fulmer championship? 100% are still staying Philip Fulmer championship. So that's the good sign for Tennessee. But look,
that's not going to stick. There are going to be some people that. And listen, how far is without the NIL? How far is Josh Heupel away from Butch Jones and how he's portrayed? Offensive coach who struggles to build a roster.
I still think he's a lot better than Butch Jones. Okay, the roster building is an issue, but let's not forget this. Butch Jones's offensive strategy wasn't that innovative. He was following what Rich Rodriguez and Brian Kelly had already done, and he didn't know how to tweak it or adjust it at all. And on top of that, in-game strategy is way better with Josh Heupel. Again, Butch Jones's basic like in-game decision making is the worst a Tennessee coach has ever been, and that's.
But Josh Heupel, I mean, I don't see how he's in terms of. Listen, do you want to go back and look at Georgia's program heading into year 4 or year 5? You want to go back and look at Alabama's program? I mean, don't you know at this point where you have a solid championship coach or not? Is there ever been a situation, maybe with the exception of Dabo Swinney, where you've kind of floundered around for the better part of a decade and then won a championship? Does anybody else on the message board or otherwise have an example of that?
I mean that's Michigan kind of floundered around with Jim Harbaugh.
Kinda, but that was for like 3 years, and they only didn't beat Ohio State.
Harbaugh was there for 6 years and they never beat Ohio State. And then he wins. Then they win. I mean, I don't know, man. I got to go with, I think Michigan fits your category a lot more than you think. If I'm being honest, I think that.
I'm not saying it's not time. I'm not saying it's time to make a change. And I'm not saying that Tennessee shouldn't be patient with Heupel.
And I don't think they floundered around.
Hold on. As Michigan was. They were patient with Harbaugh, but what's he closer to, Philip Fulmer or Josh Heupel? Guys, that's not even a
Butch Jones.
Sorry, Butch Jones. He's closer to Butch Jones. I mean,
He's
Philip
not closer to Butch
Fulmer
Jones.
would have a solid roster built by now, guys.
Josh Heupel's had 2 10-win seasons in 4 years. Butch Jones didn't have 1 10-win season in 5 years, and Butch Jones inherited a much better situation than Josh Heupel inherited. Okay, so I can't give you that at all. Like
I'm just telling you that Philip Fulmer, the recruiter, was good even after they had the loss in the SEC championship game in 2001. He was a decent recruiter after the disaster of 2005. The recruits were still coming in.
Dave,
and I don't know with Josh Heupel. Are they still coming in because of NIL dollars? Are they coming in because he's a great coach? And I think this is the time to step back and have a serious conversation about whether or not he's the future of the program, because the offense wasn't that great. That was his calling card. NIL, he may have ended up messing that up if this doesn't get fixed. And he doesn't handle the PR game well. He's afraid to get out in front of this. I think you've got a real question mark as your head coach now based off this one latest issue. And it's a big issue.
Okay, Dave. I got to say this, all due respect to Philip Fulmer, but with Josh Heupel, Ray Goff is not walking through that door. Okay, at Georgia. Mike DeBose is not walking through that door at Alabama. Philip Fulmer had some recruiting pipelines that it's just impossible for Tennessee to have nowadays because of the coaches that are at Georgia and Alabama. Okay,
but let me ask you, aside from who they're playing, Nathaniel brings this up. Nathaniel, I'm going to steal this. Program has no identity right now, so that's true. What's the identity? What's the identity of this program?
I mean, high-flying, fun offense, but...
Did you watch them last year?
Yeah, but okay, I get it. I get where you're going with that, but like that was an adjustment based on what teams were doing.
That's fair, but let me ask you about Mike Leach, who had far less talent, and we've said before, had far less offensive acumen than Heupel. Would he have ever put together an offense that struggled as much as Tennessee did last year? The answer is no.
No, but also Josh, I mean, Mike Leach had plenty of 4-8, 5-7 seasons during his time as a head coach. And I think last year, Mike Leach would fit a square peg into a round hole. He was running his offense no matter what. Is that fair to say? And
Yes.
he wasn't changing anything. And so I think a better comparison to Josh Heupel with what he did last year, Dave, was what Urban Meyer did with Chris Leak. Remember? Chris Leak was not a fit for Urban Meyer's spread offense, but he tweaked it, and it was not what Florida expected. I think you remember, right? The year they won the national title, everybody wanted Tim Tebow to start immediately, and Urban Meyer stuck with Chris Leak. And I think Heupel tweaking what he did last year because of his personnel, like I'm sorry, man. I think you're being very unfair to say he's similar to Butch Jones. I watched all 5 years of Butch Jones, and the dude was making the same mistakes in year 5 that he was in year 1 at Tennessee.
Yeah, I'd say closer too. I didn't say
no. He's not even closer. He's much closer to Philip Fulmer. And also, we got to Dave. I pushed back on the.
Let me reset the new poll question really quickly because I want to get a good assessment of that, a good sample size. Josh Heupel is championship caliber. Butch Jones, Mike Leach, Johnny Majors. Majors would, of course, lead you to believe there could be an extended period of success. I know it didn't end the right way, but he got a lot of leash. So I give you those 4.
Championship caliber. I'm leaning championship caliber. I'm sorry, I am. I still believe in Josh Heupel. I think we're being very unfair to him with this Nico saga. Now, again, Heupel roster building is an issue. And here's where Josh Heupel will fall and turn into Butch Jones in a bad way. If Heupel stays in charge of the roster building, and if Tennessee does not have its NIL together.
Well, it's feeling like that may be the case. I mean, is it not?
It is. It is, but we're going to have to see.
Feels like to me they were the first out there, and they're going to reap the benefits, but they're also going to hurt from the benefits because they were the first to do it.
Yeah. I agree right now. They did not have their NIL together. At least they didn't collect. They haven't been connected with the right people. And they were bragging more than anybody about being on top of it. So this is an ugly look for Danny White.
Okay, a lot of new listeners. So go ahead and click that subscribe button. We join you weekdays at 10 a.m. for Caleb Calhoun.
Let's do it this day real quick.
Oh, okay. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
This day in Tennessee sports history.
It's cool, baby. It's cool.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, Off the Hook Sports.
All right, so I'll remind you the show broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer, Parkside Drive in Kingston Pike. What do you got, Caleb?
I'm sorry. The reason I want to do this day is so funny because it involves another former Tennessee quarterback and a negative. But Dave, today's the 20-year anniversary of when Brett Smith and Brent Schaefer got arrested for hitting a student who was arguing with Brent Schaefer's girlfriend when they were on Tennessee's campus.
Oh, Schaefer reportedly had a bat that got covered up.
Yeah, that was
confirm that because that's assault with a deadly weapon.
It was. They pled to a lesser charge, but that had to be a fun all season to cover, right? With all those arrests, Dave. You were there.
Have you ever been hyped up on like a pre-workout and as somebody gets in your way at one of the machines at the gym, and you're thinking, if I took this dumbbell and hit them, they'd get out of the way. Then you think, no, that's assault with a deadly weapon. Don't do that. That would be bad. That escalates things quickly. For Caleb, I'm Dave, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, we will see you Monday. Coverage of the Orange and White game on offthehooksports.com, so don't miss out on that. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.